last week we spoke about a big change that's coming for Ben and I, but I thought whilst we're on that topic, let's talk about what 7 years in Australia has taught us.
Get up on your feet, this is a shakedown.
The first thing is, I hate when people talk about the grass being greener and making it sound like a negative thing. So when you want to change something, going, oh, is the grass really greener? Oh, probably not. No, sometimes it is. And you know what? Unless you go and jump and do these things, then you never know. And you could be missing out on a very green grass. You should absolutely go for things and try them. And that's something that Australia has taught us, because we did make this move, this leap of faith, from the UK to Australia, and the grass has been greener. I mean, you know, there's obviously the odd things, but to be honest, there were a lot more things back in the UK that weren't perfect. We're glad to have found that out. The second thing is that even though the grass can be greener, you still need to work towards things. It might be that a lot of things are good, but you still need to constantly tweak it. And that's what we're still finding, as you know. Maybe that's a bit because of the kind of characters that we are. That might be the case, actually. We had a few comments about that last week. But we have found that it's something that we're probably going to be doing for the rest of our lives, is constantly tweaking things to make them work for us, make them work better, make ourselves happier. We have a wonderful family, so that's great. But there's still things that we can do to improve our life, and that's what we're always working on. Number 3. If you find a good tradie, they are worth their weight in gold. Keep hold of them, cling on, and never let go, because they are certainly not all equal. If you find a good one that shows up, does a good job, doesn't charge you something ridiculous, then keep hold of them. Never, ever, ever let them go. And I think for us as expats, that is extra important, is to find all of these trades, because you might have had friends that did things for you back in your own country, but moving to Australia when everything's new, you need to find all of those support networks, not just a friendship support network, but also a tradie support network. Once you've got them, and they're good ones, keep them. Number 4, when we first moved, it was all about embracing the Australian culture and throwing ourselves into Australian culture. But what we've learnt that we really like is to mix our cultures. We take the best bits of British culture, the best bits of Australian culture, and we live like that. We don't feel like we've got anything to prove. We celebrate both cultures. We still love where we're from. We still love the British culture. We don't need to go all out Australian. We can just combine the two cultures and live happily ever after. Number 5 is that we have to be very flexible and always think outside the box, because things haven't always been simple here for us. Certainly not being on the other side of the world from our support network. We have had to think a little bit differently to make things work. I still think it's a good trait to have about you when you encounter a problem, to just look at other solutions. It doesn't need to be the norm. Number 6. This is a bit of an expat one. It's about taking things for granted that you've always known. So when you go into a new country, all the things you have taken for granted, things that just seem like everyday normal life to you, such as public transport, or even certain brands that you can buy, certain products that you really like, that you've just thought were the norm. Taking those things for granted is something that we've always done. And it's something that Australia has taught us, is that it's not a given. You can't just get everything everywhere in the world. Just because your favourite product is on a shelf somewhere doesn't mean it is going to be to the next place that you go. Throughout the world, where all of this pandemic stuff has happened over the past couple of years, things that you've always known to be the case have not become the case, and all of a sudden you found yourself hunting for loo roll. So that's not just an expat thing anymore, that's an everywhere thing. The things that you expect are not always going to be there. One thing that living where we live has taught us is how to deal with emergency situations. I'm not talking about like a first aid instance, although we have dealt with a few thanks to our daughter Ella. I'm talking about natural disasters, things that we wouldn't have gone through in the UK, such as being in bushfires and flooding, things that can really be life and death situations that we found ourselves having to make sure we're knowledgeable about, and having to make sure that we're keeping up to date with what's going on and what we need to do and what we need to pack, preparing our property. It sounds weird, but I'm glad to have gone through a little bit more than we're used to. I'm glad to have been put out of our comfort zone, because having those kind of experiences, it prepares us better for anything in the future. There is something else that living in Australia has taught us, and that's to face our fears. I say face our fears, kind of. I'm still not at one with snakes. I don't enjoy having them near me, but it's something that living in Australia has taught us. I'm not going to not be here because of a snake. I will still live my dreams. I will still do what I want to do. I just need to have a bit more knowledge and know what to do in situations where I might encounter these things. The other thing actually that I've kind of learnt to do since being in Australia is being on camera. That is a massive fear that I faced. I used to absolutely hate being on camera. In fact, I would run away from it to the hills. And it's something that I've only done since being here. I have pushed myself to do it, and obviously, as you know, now I'm on camera all the time. So although there are some fears we've jumped into head first, there are some that, like snakes, I'm still not at one, but I'm doing what I need to do. I've got to say that back in the UK, I didn't think, oh, I can't wait to see a pigeon, or oh my gosh, a seagull, yay, or a squirrel. Actually, sometimes I did get excited about squirrels, but not too excited. No, not too excited. I definitely wasn't excited to see pigeons. But I tell you what, I see the beautiful birds here. The lorikeets, I love seeing lorikeets, and there's like a blue and yellow of the same size. It looks like a budgie, but it's not a budgie. Anyway, absolutely flipping stunning. Can't remember what it's called. As you all know, I have a complete obsession with bush turkeys and bin chickens. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see it. So I've got the bin chicken up there. Oh, love that. By my friend Hamri. I'm going to link her details below. She's an incredible local artist. Love her. I've got loads of her art pieces throughout the house. I have a complete obsession with kangaroos. I'm as excited now as I was the first time I saw one. I just love them. So that appreciation for wildlife and that wanting to be amongst the wildlife, bar, what do I want? I don't want to be near cane toads, actually. I flipping hate cane toads. They're absolutely gross. So the appreciation for some wildlife is something that we didn't really have before. I think it might be that Australian wildlife is a lot more beautiful, a lot more unique, a lot more charming. I'd love to hear in the comments what living in Australia or visiting Australia has taught you. And if you're thinking of moving to Australia, then check out the 3 ebooks that we've written to help you on your way, and also to help you settle in once you've arrived. If you don't already, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram to see what goes on in between videos. I'll see you next week.